Hi class, so for this discussion we will be looking into chapter 3 of your module, which is market integration. Right? So market integration refers to a situation where separate markets become one single market. And market in this sense could be a physical infrastructure, a place where you go and buy and sell your products, or it could be online, or it could be a system. Right? So market integration class happens when barriers are removed that would enable separate markets to interact or to be combined. Right? So for the sake of this discussion, we can refer to integration as the attempt of combining separate national economies into one larger economies, like combining the Philippine market with the markets of Singapore, Malaysia, and other Southeast Asian countries. So how would market integration happen in this sense? How would you combine the economies of these states? They would come up with trade agreements. Like the Association of Southeast Asian Nations would come up with trade agreements that would enable each country to be able to conduct business in every country in Southeast Asia. Okay, so when there is market integration, the conduct of business is no longer limited to one participant, okay, but it would encapsulate business activities in an international level, right? So integration class or integration, there is interconnectedness. There is a combination of markets, such as that what happens in the market of another can affect the other markets. So if you have read about the 1997 Asian financial crisis, okay, it started in Thailand, and it affected, okay, the economies of other countries, even outside of Southeast Asia, right? So market integration, there's a combination of market. You go on an international level, okay? The markets of various countries are integrated. So there is now what you call an international market. So how did this happen? Let's take a look at the evolution of international market. What are the ideas that promoted the international market? Why did we have an international market? So first we have mercantilism. Okay? The mercantilism period viewed exports as beneficial while imports were detrimental to the nation's economy. So the countries who practiced mercantilism back in the 15th to 1600th century, okay, was thinking that exports will be good for their economy. That is, when they sell products to other states, okay, and these states would pay them money, that is beneficial for them. Now, what is not beneficial? Imports, okay? So, for mercantilism advocates, they would promote exporting products, but they do not like importing products because that is harmful to the economy, okay? So it's okay if you send products outside because you get payment from buyers outside of your country, but when you import, that's not okay, okay? Because import products will now be competing to the locally produced products, right? So there are countries who practiced mercantilism. We have Europe, okay? Countries in Europe. We have France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Britain, even Germany and the Netherlands. Okay? So for example, England in the 1600s introduced policies that discourage its people from buying foreign products, okay? Because mercantilism does not like imports, does not like importing, okay? While they discourage importing products, they created incentives, okay, for those who would only buy British goods, okay? That's in order for the people to patronize their own products and help their local businesses. At the same time, while discouraging imports, they have also been exporting, okay, to places outside of their country, okay, because they viewed that as beneficial, that is good for them. So they looked for countries that they could colonize, where they could bring out their exports, their locally produced products. Okay, so mercantilism, by definition, is an economic policy that is designed to maximize exports. Export as much as you can, but imports should be minimized. Only import, only take in the products that you really need. Okay? So first we have mercantilism. Okay? The mercantilism period viewed exports as beneficial, while imports were detrimental to the nation's economy. So the countries who practiced mercantilism back in the 15th to 1600th century, okay, was thinking that exports will be good for their economy. That is, when they sell products to other states, okay, and these states would pay them money, that is beneficial for them. Now, what is not beneficial? Imports, okay? So, for mercantilism advocates, they would promote exporting products, but they do not like importing products because that is harmful to the economy. Okay, so it's okay if you send products outside because you get payment from buyers outside of your country, but when you import, that's not okay. Okay, because you will now be import products will now be competing to the locally produced products, right? So there are countries who practiced mercantilism. We have Europe, okay? Countries in Europe. We have France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Britain, even Germany and the Netherlands. Okay? So for example, England in the 1600s introduced policies that discourage its people from buying foreign products, okay? Because mercantilism does not like imports, does not like importing, okay? While they discourage importing products, they created incentives, okay, for those who would only buy British goods, okay? That's in order for the people to patronize their own products and help their local businesses. At the same time, while discouraging imports, they have also been exporting, okay, to places outside of their country, okay, because they viewed that as beneficial, that is good for them. So they looked for countries that they could colonize, where they could bring out their exports, their locally produced products. Okay? So mercantilism, by definition, is an economic policy that is designed to maximize exports. Export as much as you can, but imports should be minimized. Only import, only take in the products that you really need. Okay? So even if mercantilism would discourage import, export, as it is promoting exports, this would still promote international, or the evolution of international market, because now you would look, because mercantilism would now be looking for countries where you could bring your products. Okay, so you will now be making countries making countries to be dependent on your products or exports. Okay. Another idea that promoted the evolution of international market is free market thought. Okay, so it's a system of free commerce. It is saying that commerce should be practiced freely, okay, where barriers are not present. So, according to the free market thought, nations should maximize production of goods and trade for goods whenever it is advantageous. So just conduct business freely whenever it's advantageous to you. So that you should not be limited to conducting such business if it is being beneficial to the economy. Okay, so that's why in every country now we have free trade zones. Like say for example in China, we have a place there where everyone, even international companies, other companies from outside of China could just freely establish their business without being required many requirements. Okay, so they are free to establish their business because China deemed it good if they would attract, okay, investors, companies from outside of China. Hindi pala every country, guys. Many countries have free trade zones, but not all. Next, we have protectionism. Okay, this would refer to trade policies that are created by a specific government to protect local businesses from foreign competition. Okay? Because one downside of free market is the tendency for local businesses to have difficulty competing with foreign products. Okay? So governments would then impose policies that would protect their local companies. Okay, so they would do this so that the national economy will not be left behind by other states, and if they would protect the local businesses, then these local businesses would produce more. Okay, they would be competitive. And later on, they would also export outside of the country. So protectionism class could come in the form of increased tariffs on imported goods. Okay? For example, say your country has a lot of shoe factories. However, local people have begun buying shoes that are made in China instead, that are imported from China, because the prices are a lot lower. So in this case, a protectionist government would impose tariffs or added tax on Chinese shoe distributors, and this would make the prices of Chinese shoes go higher. Okay, so thus it would make local shoes competitive with this foreign imported shoes. It would make the local shoes cheaper or more competitive. So that's an example of a protectionist government increasing tariff on imported goods. It could also come in the form of quotas on imported goods. Okay, so let's say a government would place an import quota on the total number of imports allowable over a set period, or let's say over 1 year. So in our previous example, a country might restrict the import of shoes from China to just 200,000 pairs per year. So once you have reached that number of imports in a year, then you are no longer allowed to import. Okay, so that would be quotas on imports of goods. Okay, so protectionism class protects the local economy against negative effects of global trade. Okay, so that local companies, local producers would be able to, their products would be patronized by the people, local people. All right, we also have the Bretton Woods Agreement. Okay, so it supported an international monetary system. Okay, so sabi ni Bretton Woods Agreement, we should have an international monetary system. Dapat meron tayong iisang currency na acceptable in all countries, like that. Okay, so the agreement was made on July 1994. Okay, so it was developed by 44 countries at a conference which is called United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference. It was held in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. It was called Bretton Woods Agreement or Bretton Woods System because it was agreed upon in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. Okay, so the Bretton Woods system pegged, the US dollar to be the basis for other currencies. Okay, so the US dollar would then be acceptable in every country. So if you would go to, let's say, Qatar, okay, you can exchange your Philippine peso to the US dollar. Okay, so that when you go to Qatar, you can have the US dollar be exchanged to their money. Okay, so if you're doing international travel, it's important that you first exchange, that you first convert your local money into the US dollar, because that is what is acceptable. That is what could be changed by other countries. Okay, so from the Bretton Woods Agreement, the dollar has become an internationally accepted currency. And gold then was the basis for the US dollar, but let's not go into that because it will just, it's a little complicated. Okay, how understanding how currencies are pegged to the US dollar, like bakit 47 pesos ang kapalit ng isang dollar. Okay, maybe later on in your higher studies you would come across that, right? Basta, what I would like you to understand from the Bretton Woods Agreement is that out of this, okay, the dollar has become an internationally accepted currency. Aside from that, out of the Bretton Woods Agreement came also the establishment of the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trades. Okay, so for this agreement, states have come up with a centralized global economic system, okay, that would accelerate worldwide economic development. So they promoted the principles of neoliberalism and have also come up with the Washington Consensus. The neoliberalism theory class refers to states providing environment for businesses to thrive. Okay, states would welcome multinational companies, that they should be given free access to investment and production without any governmental policies restriction. So that's what was advocated in the Bretton Woods Agreement. Okay, and we have also the Washington Consensus. It's a leading advocate of neoliberalism. Okay, it advocates trade liberalization, privatization, and the regulation of national economy. So the regulation of national economy, meaning governments should not interfere with national businesses. They should allow businesses, national companies, they should allow business in the country. They should not dictate prices even. Okay, so if you would notice, we have the oil deregulation law. The government cannot really control the prices of oil. So if oil companies would decide that they would add 5 pesos on every liter, they can do so because it is deregulated. Okay, government cannot interfere on that. So the Washington Consensus is advocating such. Okay, so if we would apply these theories, okay, sabi ng Bretton Woods Agreement, mas makakabuti ito sa worldwide economic development. Okay? Now let's look into the international financial institutions that were established from the Bretton Woods Agreement. Okay, we have the International Monetary Fund. It was created to establish or to stabilize and oversee exchange rates with the 40 member states that were members in 1946. So, si International Monetary Fund would oversee the exchange rates. So, titingnan niya, ops, ganito lang dapat ang peso to dollar. Hindi pwedeng ikaw Pilipinas sasabihin mong 100 pesos ang kapalit ng isang dollar. So, yan yung trabaho ni International Monetary Fund. Okay, so it oversees exchange rates between countries. Kaya hindi natin pwedeng sabihin na si Thailand, ang pera niya, itataas niya agad-agad. Sasabihin niya, 80 pesos ang isang pera namin if you exchange that to $1. Countries cannot just do that. Okay, we have the International Monetary Fund who is looking into it. Okay, so it deals with exchange rates, as we have said earlier, with balance of payments, with international capital flows. It also monitors member states and their macroeconomic policies. The IMF would always come up with recommendations, okay? Recommendations saying na, oh, ikaw Pilipinas, parang hindi maganda itong economic policy mo na ito. Maybe you can revise this. We have these recommendations for you, okay? However, IMF is not have become targets of criticism, okay? Because it also provides loans and meron siyang conditions na kailangang ma-meet ng borrower bago makakuha ng loan. So, na-criticize siya for this. Which, of course, because of these criticisms, the IMF have somehow changed some of its rules. Okay? So, that's for IMF. The main function is to prevent crisis, okay, to monitor the global economy, and provide technical assistance. Usually, if we have countries that are going through crisis, we have the IMF that is intervening, that is providing possible solutions that could be followed or that could be done by the countries that are experiencing crisis. We also have the World Trade Organization and the former General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. Bago siya naging World Trade Organization, it was first General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, or GATT. Okay? So, it existed until 1995 nung naging WTO na siya. It was superseded by WTO, or World Trade Organization. So, GATT's focus was on trade in goods or in products. However, nung dumating si WTO, hindi na lang siya focused on goods. Si WTO also focused on trade in services, so not just products, because we have services that are also being traded, intellectual property, and investment measures. So GATT was just focused on goods, and when it was superseded by the WTO also focused on the trade in services, intellectual property, and investment measures. These were added to goods, right? Okay. We also have the World Bank. It began operation in 1946, shortly after the Bretton Woods Agreement. Okay, so the World Bank's primary function is to provide and lend money to government or government agencies for development projects. So it would lend money to developing countries, third world countries, so that they can use it for development projects. Okay, so the World Bank is a source of funds for developing countries. It is also an important source of information on development. It would provide valuable advices and support to the nations, to the members of the United Nations. Okay? We have carriers of economic globalization. We have multinational corporations. So multinational corporations are companies that operate in more than one country at the same time. And a company may start in one country and may spread to other foreign countries when they expand their investments. So a multinational corporation class is a corporation or a corporate organization that owns or controls production of goods and services in at least more than one country. Okay, other than the headquarters or the home country, it also operates in various countries. Microsoft, for example, have operations in China and India. It has its research and development facilities there. So it has also facilities and operations in the UK and Ireland. So Microsoft is an example of a multinational corporation. We also have transnational corporations. These are corporations that operate in many countries as well, but there is no centralized management system, meaning they do not have a home company to manage them. They do not have a headquarters Okay, and transnational corporations take decisions suitable for their operations. So these companies are free, okay, to operate within their own discretion. They do not need to wait for decisions coming from the headquarters. Let's say, for example, McDonald's. So people who own franchises in various countries are free to make decisions with regards to their operation. They do not need to consult it to the home company or the country where McDonald's originated. So they are not controlled by the country of origin. So to differentiate a multinational corporation from a transnational corporation, multinational corporation own a home company, okay, and subsidiaries. Meron siyang headquarters, meron siyang branches, okay, in various countries. While a transnational company or corporation do not have subsidiaries, but just many companies. Okay? Marami siyang company, iisang pangalan, pero wala siyang home or headquarters. Multinational corporations have a centralized management system, meaning the branches in various countries depend on decisions from the central headquarters. Okay, the central headquarters say that you implement this policy, they need to implement it. While for transnational corporations, they do not have a centralized management system. Okay, branches are free to make their own decisions. Multinational corporations face barriers in decision making due to its centralized management system. So they cannot just impose policies, they cannot just impose change in prices or goods because they need the approval of their central headquarters. While for transnational corporations, they're able to gain more interest in the local market since they maintain their own system and they can decide on their own. Pwedeng sabihin ni McDonald's na, oh, ito yung promo ko. Pero hindi yon yung promo sa ibang bansa. They are free to innovate their own promos or promotional if they see it good for their company. We have factors that promote economic globalization. First, we have regional integration. So it is the practice of two or more countries that sit together to discuss problems or any trade agreement. So they would sit together to overcome economic crisis and promote development in the region. So when regional integration is being practiced, states within a specific geographical region, like say for example Asia, would come together to establish agreements, let's say establish free trade zones such as the ASEAN. Okay, so it would promote integration among countries within that specific region, which is good because countries would be talking about problems. So let's say, for example, the Philippines would say that this is an economic problem that I am currently facing in my country. What should we do, right? And these countries, the other countries, would, of course, extend their help, okay, in helping the Philippines come up with a solution. Next, we also have trade liberalization. So it is the free flow of trade between countries among the world. So trade liberalization class emphasizes on the removal of trade barriers such as tariffs and taxes on goods and services. Dapat meron tayong free commerce, free business. Yan ang sinasabi ni trade liberalization. Next, we have foreign direct investment. So it refers to the investment by foreign companies that would, of course, lead to more economic interconnectedness of the world economy, which promotes economic globalization. If you notice, each country would do their best to make their country attractive for foreign investment because this foreign investment would give jobs to their people. Okay, so foreign direct investment makes economies of the world interconnected. You wouldn't wish, okay, foreign countries to experience crisis because this will affect their investment in your country. Mawawalan ng trabaho yung mga tao. We have privatization and deregulation as also the fourth factor that would promote economic globalization. So as advocated by the Washington Consensus that we have discussed earlier, private ownership of the means of production will lead to unlimited happiness in society. Okay, so ayaw nito ng direct control of the government to the means of production, or ayaw nitong i-control ng government ang mga companies na nag-produce ng goods and services. So, private ownership of the means of production is something that gives profit maximization and capital accumulation. So, if the ownership of the means of production are in the hands of private individuals, sabi ni privatization and deregulation, it would lead to unlimited happiness in the society. Because if the government controls everything, control the means of production, then ano daw mangyayari? People won't be happy kasi wala silang property. Okay? We also have factors that impede economic globalization. First is high tax. Okay? So ano ba yung factors na naghihinder ng economic globalization? Okay? It does not promote economic globalization. High tax. When a particular government puts high corporate tax on investments, let's say for example, the investors would move their capital somewhere else where there is more advantage. Let's say for example, the government of the Philippines would put high corporate tax on investments. Lalayuan siya ng foreign investors. Pupunta siya sa mas mababaang tax or sa walang tax. Okay? We also have extreme regionalization. Okay? So the extreme concentration of economic activities in one region, like the Southeast Asia, okay, if the concentration of economic activities would just be in that area, okay, trade in goods and services, the movement of capital and people within a particular region in the country will be limited lang dyan. So, yung Europe, yung other region in the world will not be able to conduct their economic activities because countries in the Southeast Asia have come up with centralizing their economic activities only sa Southeast Asia. So, paano mo mapropromote ang economic globalization dyan? Kung sabi ni Southeast Asian countries, ay dito lang tayo dapat, ang trade lang natin dapat ng sapatos is within the member countries. Di tayo dapat mag-entertain ng trade, di tayo dapat makikitrade outside of Southeast Asian countries. That's one example of extreme regionalization, and it does not promote economic globalization because other countries outside of a specific region are not able to participate. Third, protectionism. Okay, so some states might devise means of protecting their local industries from unfavorable competitions with big foreign companies. Okay, so some states may consider certain goods and products that they do not want to come into their country. They might consider those as contrabands, or they would give quota to such goods from foreign firms so that their local companies will be patronized by local people. Okay? So, in that sense, hindi na promote ang economic globalization daw. Kasi, you are hindering other states from participating in the economic activity in your own state. Alright, we have lack of technological sophistication as one that impedes economic globalization. Okay, so technological innovation and development is crucial to the development of economic globalization. Kasi, ang isang foreign investor, ayaw naman niya mag-invest sa isang country na wala man lang, that will not support its operation. Halimbawa, ang hina-hina ng internet sa Pilipinas. So, hindi ka makakakuha ng investor dito, galing ng foreign investor dito, kasi ang hina-hina ng internet mo. Yung mga companies that needs high internet connectivity won't be able to really operate in the Philippines because the Philippines cannot support their network needs. Okay, so the lack of improvement in technology would can have a severe impact on economic globalization. Okay, because it is what makes the global financial system and transactions more convenient and reliable in the present age. That's why countries are doing their best to improve their infrastructure, their technological capacity, so that they can attract more foreign investments. Kasi pag wala, hindi ka nagde-develop, wala kang technology, wala, you will not be able to have other companies, foreign companies, invest in your country. Okay, so that's market integration.